And welcome back. As we were talking, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi held a growing momentum in Egypt's bilateral relation with Russia, notably in terms of trade and joint venture such as Daba nuclear power plant and the Russian industrial area in the Suez Canal economic zone. And the remarks came as the President received the Russian President's aide, Nikolai Patrushev, who is also the chairman of the Russian Maritime Navigation Council, and the accompanying delegation. To shed more light on the issue, we are very much delighted to be joined over the phone by Ambassador Saad, former Assistant Foreign Minister and former Egyptian Ambassador to Moscow. Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. Sir, how does the meeting between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the Russian aide Nikolai Patrushev is reflecting the strategic relationships binding Egypt and Russia?
Well, let's try to focus very much, because your time is always short. Let's put it this way, that the visit, I think in order to better understand it, should be divided into two parts. One is bilateral, one is regional, and international.
Yes.
On the bilateral, it's obvious that now the relationship between Russia and Egypt is being further intensified. Although with disregard of difficulties that are going on both in Russia and Egypt, and I think two big points on the bilateral relations. One is the Daba plant, as you have just correctly mentioned, and we should remember that there was an agreement that Russia agreed to accelerate building the plant earlier than it was planned. And that is very significant message, that there is a due attention and special attention is given to the relationship with Egypt. Here, I would like just to underline one footnote, that under the circumstances of the developments of the region, I believe personally that Russia is giving even further attention, more attention to its relationship with Egypt. Take into consideration, one is the role that Egypt has been playing, since the war in Gaza and further in Iran, and the recognition and realization that Egypt's role is indispensable in any effort, regarding the settlement of disputes, political or military disputes. So this is one important thing. The second is that again we have to use our memory to remember that in the meeting, the virtual meeting took place between President Sisi and President Putin.
Yes.
President Putin promised and committed that they will support Egypt with its requirements of wheat, knowing that there are the problem of supply chains, so on and so forth. So this is briefly on the bilateral, in addition to the economic zone and all other parts of activities and cooperation between the two countries. And the other part is, the developments going on in the region. Although Russia a bit relatively far, or not involved directly or strongly in the developments taking place, particularly the war in Iran, but it's obvious that Russia has special relations, by the way, with Iran. It was Russia who which built the nuclear plant in Abu Shaur in Iran. So they care about what's happening there, and they care about the stability of the region altogether. And again, we reiterate the point I've just made, that that Egypt's role, whether publicly declared or undeclared, they know, they follow, they monitor, and they know the kind of role Egypt plays, which started to be even more clear to the whole world, since the October war in Gaza, which has proved that Egypt is the center of balances, and Egypt was the only country that is able to govern the war with a kind of extreme professional patience, self-restraint, wisdom, and that it succeeded to transfer the war into an approach towards peace, regardless of in spite of the problems being created by Israel and its Prime Minister Netanyahu. Yes. So I think while the war in Iran, it has, positive and negative indications. So, and they know, and they might be involved in a way or else in consultations taking on, in order to bring the Americans and the Iranians again to the negotiating table, and taking into consideration that Egypt is within the quarter countries, that are involved in the mediation assistance. So it's very important for Russia to realize, how far these efforts are going on, and how Russia could help. Yes. In order to protect its interests, to ensure the stability of the region, because the instability of the region altogether affects directly Russia, and Russia really will have a great difficulty if more problems are created in the region that would hinder its effort both to reach a settlement and both to continue and promote its relations with the Middle East and the Arab world.
Yes. Sir, how does the exchange of visits and communication between both leaders, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Russian President Vladimir Putin, is helping and contributing to strengthening the relations and the strategic relations binding both countries?
That's a good question, because people think that, that the leaders are just, they work, they govern, they take decisions, and, that the emotions are not there. No, yes, the emotions and the personal appreciation is very much there. And, I keep repeating, that our memory is very important in these occasions. Since the President Sisi assumed power in 2014, he was and still very much admired by President Putin, and if we have a good memory, we remember that he presented him with a very special dressing, military dressing, which is very rare and very valuable in that Russian tradition. And I remember, let me put it this way, that's very personal. When I was in Russia presenting my credentials, he told me something that I have to repeat it in public. He said that whenever I meet the Egyptian leaders, I learn. So, and I think he had a lot to learn since President Sisi assumed power in Egypt, and he appreciates and he knows, and the Russians have a deep understanding and appreciation of what Egypt means. They know Egypt that is in the center. I would say interpret, my personal interpretation, how to see it. When they deal with Egypt, they look at the map, the word map. That, Egypt in the center of the region, in the center of the world, geographically, and as well as, of course, politically.
Yes. Indeed, Ambassador Raouf Saad, former Assistant Foreign Minister and former Egyptian Ambassador to Moscow. Thank you so much, sir, for your precious input. And moving on with our news, where President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi held a phone call on Monday with his Kenyan counterpart, William Ruto. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Mohammed al-Shinnawi said the call highlighted proceeding to solidify the joint efforts in the domains of mutual concern, particularly regarding the economic, commercial and investment spheres. He said the call tackled regional developments, including developments in Sudan, reiterating Egypt's firm stance backing an end to human rights violations and supporting Sudan's sovereignty and territorial